It's recording.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to open up today's Mahto Tribal Council meeting with prayer.
Absolutely.
Not going to obviously close my eyes since I'm traveling, but Yahuwah, please guide our thoughts, our mind, our hearts, lead us to truth, justice, doing all things legally and lawfully for the American people and all of our offspring. We say this in thy son's Yahusha's name. All right, so opening up today, I wanted to discuss first any questions. Anybody have any?
Let's see, I'm just going to the. Nope, there are no participants. I personally don't have any questions right now.
Okay, let's go ahead and move forward then. I wanted to discuss today the idea of a government, okay? And to understand the concept of a government, we have to understand first how it's currently assembled. So what is the nature of what?
Nothing. I don't know what that was.
Okay. So the nature of a civilized society is that they have laws and rules that all the members agree to abide by. They also have a set times and seasons or calendars. In the Bible, which again is the governing law for Mahto Ministries, it says that we have a right to live by God's law or we have a right to live by man's law. And when it says give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, what does that mean if you believe that the Holy Roman Empire or the Roman Empire did not become the Holy Roman Empire? You believe that it's talking about a civilization that does not currently exist. However, for those of us who overstand this material, we overstand the Constitution for 1789 versus the one for 1871, where all U.S. citizens live. What we overstand is that not only do we have a right to live in whichever jurisdiction we wish, but we have a right as American Indians to join whatever Native American tribe will accept us. Why? Because who holds the key to indigenous tribal membership in the territory of the Republic of the United States? Any territory. It would be the indigenous populations, correct? That would be the Hawaiians. That would be the Filipinos. That would be anybody who calls themselves an Indian in some territory of the Republic of the United States. So if there was a mechanism for indigenous peoples worldwide to come together, and that indigenous chief chose to adopt people of all colors, all tongues, all races under one banner, whose banner? Yahuwah's. The chief is irrelevant. The chief is a servant only. He is a figurehead that it comes to his people's rescue anywhere around the world. That is why if you hear the term emperor, potentate, plenipotentiary, there's the pronunciation, king, chief, any of these terms that in your mind might trigger an egotistical response, remember this: I do not leave my people behind. That means I must be able to travel safely wherever I must to retrieve them. Why? Because if other nations do not want to permit the chief that right, it's not a privilege. Remember, I represent the indigenous. That means that unless you can show me where you have legal title to your so-called lands that supersedes the indigenous people who were there before your corporations arrived, guess what? I will assume it is a suggestion only. Show me how any of your records supersede the authority of ours as indigenous people under the banner of a foreign Elohim. Who is that? Yahweh, not Yahweh. It is Yahuwah and his son Yahusha. You live under the banner of foreign Elohim, and we are not required to live under your Elohim in the Republic of the United States of America. That means that the chief has certain rights that supersede any other foreign emperor, foreign leader. What are those rights? Those specific rights that do not pass to any subsequent chiefs. Why is that? Because they shouldn't. That's why. One of those rights is the unilateral right to appoint any foreigner to lead my people. This is why, congratulations to everybody. President Trump has been elected president of the republic, president of the democracy that he has canceled, according to Jan Halper Hayes. So again, we acknowledge and accept and are absolutely thrilled to hear that we have a man of at least some faith in the White House in charge of this nation again. However, pastors, let me ask you a question. Are the books in these scriptures that suggest we are going to have a 7-year tribulation, are they just suggestions? If they're not suggestions, then do we have a duty as men of faith to share the truth? If we are going to share the truth, that necessarily includes ensuring that our people have a mechanism to buy and sell amongst ourselves if and when the man of lawlessness is revealed. It's very simple. Again, we are not here to stop any of these events. We are simply here to provide a mechanism for those with ears to hear and eyes to see. Once we have established our own governmental offices, we peacefully and lawfully coincide with the governing forces. However, like all tribal governments, we have a right to protect our own people within our own borders from all foreigners. Prove me wrong using any law, using any enabling act, using any constitution, using any international treaty. It is clearly outlined in the rights of all indigenous peoples for the UN that we have a right to these things. So by peacefully and lawfully expressing these rights, what crime could a chief ever be committing? Especially if the chief is telling them, hey, you tell me, okay? You could have convinced me back 10 years ago that you had a right to tell me I don't have a right to travel my own indigenous lands, but you can't do it now. Why? Because my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Where was I at 10 years ago? I was standing in a divorce action. I had no idea how I got there, and suddenly I was kicked out of my house. My weapons were taken from me, and my offspring were taken from me. I had no idea how any of that happened. All I knew is that I no longer was facing a Christian woman in this court. There are no Christian women in divorce court. What was I up against? How did this happen to a law-abiding man who had never hurt another soul? It happened because I was not aware of unknown contracts. If one reads the actual book, Behold a Dark or Pale Horse, William Cooper. If you read the scriptures, I'm talking about the Torah. I am talking about the New Testament as it was written in Hebrew. Why are you reading anything in Greek or Latin if it was written in the original language, pastors? If you can't find the Sabbath day having been changed by anything other than a church calling itself the Catholic Church, why are you following that Sabbath day of the sun? These are sun worshipers. Look above the headdresses. Why am I not, again, I will reiterate, afraid that Masons are on the wrong side because I've read their doctrine. They do not realize that at the head of their organizations lies your peeps, those described in the book of Revelation. You who call yourselves Yahuwah's chosen people, but in reality you're of the synagogue of Satan. We are not at war with you either. However, we roll with the sevenfold armor of Yahuwah. And the chief has lost a living daughter to alienation because of your bar association agents. these former US citizens who took oaths to a foreign state called Britain, when they took that oath to protect their courts first, clients second. What is that court system? It is admiralty law. That's copyrighted and owned by the Vatican. Hello. We follow Yahuwah and his laws. That's our right in this republic known as the United States of America. And we are peaceful, law-abiding Indians who are neutral in any war between the corporate United States of America and all U.S. citizens. Go read the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, reiterated again by Roosevelt in 1933. If you're a U.S. citizen, you are an enemy to the United States. I do not mean the republic. I mean the corporation in D.C. That's why one can be stopped at will while traveling within their borders. Where are their borders? The quote-unquote all-cap states adopted the borders of each territory. That's why each territorial tribal council adopts the borders of the territory. Each county adopted the borders of the de jure county. Why? Because now they are indistinguishable unless you are a discerning man or woman on the land. You walk into a courthouse thinking it is actually a court of law. It is an admiralty jurisdiction. We have been under military occupation since. Which president was the first Bar Association maggot? Lincoln.
I couldn't unmute fast enough. Yes, Lincoln.
That's who handed us over to Britain. They've been controlling all governmental operations ever since. Who has owned Britain since 1215? The Catholic Church. Admiralty law has been in force since then. When they created the 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, it was the biggest hoodwink that the American people were ever subjected to. Why? Because they thought it was actually to free the slaves. It was to enslave all colors under one common citizenship that is owned by the Vatican. Hello? Who's tracking so far? Anybody not catching this? Because the difference between myself and all other chiefs, all other leaders of all other tribes, all of your elected senators and representatives, is that I will stand in front of any one of them, any group of them, and not only defend, but prove everything that I've just said. If there is an ecclesiastical leadership or some royal leadership around the world that wishes to challenge what I claim is my alloidal title rights to all lands, that my people, regardless of what territory, what country, or anything else that they're in, if they have a Mahto tribe and they have fully enrolled members, that country's membership, if they get to that, and they do it peacefully in conjunction with the governing authorities, just like the scriptures say, because we are not here to take down any governments. We are here to free those who want to be part of the band of Yahuwah. In the Mahto tribe, we use these minor estates that have been assigned to our treasury. Once one joins the tribe, the U.S. citizenship is extinguished. Everything that one has is put into a private trust account in their name. It's an Indian trust account. It's called an IMM account. It's assigned to the treasury for every Indian who has American nationality as a right by birth. You become part of the Mahto village in that county, which again has adopted the de jure borders, not the de facto corporate borders, the de jure borders. So what do you have an obligation to if you become a Mahto village member as an American national? You have an obligation to the Republic of the United States of America. Pretty simple. You can do whatever in the hell you want, provided you harm no other man or woman. Very simple. Why do our courts have a very simplified version of court procedures? Because it is intended to function according to the common law. And if one is in a court, go look it up, a court of record. That is a common law court. It says it has a seal. It says that it has a recording. It says that it has a judge. And the judge proceeds according to the common law. That means the judge is there as a referee. The judge has no authority outside of that. Why? Because our agreement in the Mahto tribe, which is within the Republic of the United States, since we are a sovereign nation, we run our courts differently. If you can show me how anything we're doing violates anything that's guaranteed by the Constitution for the Republic, then we will change it. We are not here to defy any authorities. If you can show me something we are doing that's incorrect, by all means, please bring it to my attention. I'm a law-abiding American, sold out for the Republic. However, until I understand the true nature of biblical events juxtaposed against everything that I am seeing nationally, what I must naturally assume, and I will explain how I get there, is that now, because of AI, because of technology, because of all of the leaps and bounds that we have made, the middle class is being phased out. Think, what happens when the middle class who employs the vast majority of Americans is phased out? What happens when you have 15-minute cities worldwide? Again, I am looking at this from a theological perspective predicated upon what is referred to as end times eschatological studies. It means end times prophecies that are outlined in the scriptures. These prophecies tell us that in the last days there will be a one world government. It tells us that he will change the times and the seasons, which is again why the Mahto tribe follows the Jewish calendar. We follow Israel's election cycle. However, until we have all of our members in place, it's going to be an emergency election procedure that just basically, an emergency should not be used in a term like we think we're in danger. We do not. We know we are safe. We have awesome government employees, loyal employees working in all levels of government. If you can show me anything that we have ever advocated that advocates for anything that overthrows our government, again, it's going to be your delusion. I have stated very clearly that we are a peaceful, law-abiding, separate society from yours. We recognize your jurisdiction over all of your U.S. citizens. They don't belong to us until they willingly join our church and our tribe. If you join our church, and I'm only using that term for purposes of being understood, it does not mean that you are anti-American. It means the exact opposite. It means that you are 100% for the Republic. Why do we not entertain the notions or the comments from outsiders? Because they're irrelevant. If you are a chief, if you're a U.S. citizen, and you decide that you have something to say to one of my members or to me, remember, I will not deign to answer questions from servants or feel compelled to listen to you blather on about your traditions. I don't give two shits what your traditions are. You're a slave. You don't even know who you are. You know where you can stick your traditions. My people are free. My people are law-abiding Americans. My people do not answer to any white fathers. Why? Because we've adopted all of the offspring of those who conquered us. It's very simple. Why wouldn't the chief come out and retaliate and try to do everything? We're not like that. Let me explain what the white man had that we did not have. They had reading and writing. So if you are a member of the LDS Church, remember, you're following a prophet that prophesies nothing. That should get you thinking. But the symbols that you have on all of your temple garments, do you think it's an accident that they're identical to Masonic symbols? Do you think it's an accident that the temple ritual all absolutely models the rituals within their society? Who do they follow unwittingly? You can look up the readings of Albert Pike. Lucifer was the original light bearer. Their new light bearer is now Jesus Christ, JC. I refuse to say the name because, again, it says in the Torah, we are not to let the names of foreign Elohim come out of our mouths. So while any one of my members may say name of their deity they wish, the chief, I have to represent the actual Yahuan people. I won't say the name of other deities. I still might blurt it out accidentally, but getting back to the point, that's who owns all U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens are all part of the Catholic Church. Whether or not you understand this is not my problem. If you're a U.S. citizen in any level of government, you have to understand the fact that the notice that is being sent to all the clerks of court for all these international agencies is that we, the people, have a few assumptions within our grand juries that are formed within each one of our jurisdictions. And that is that if somebody has taken an oath to a foreign entity, foreign society, since the formation in 1879 and the handing over of our courts to said organization bar, everything that they've accumulated is assumed to be spoils of unlawful racketeering and transferring and buying and selling of souls as described in the book of Revelation. That means that all of the wealth that has been stored up for the people in the last days, everything that the $700 trillion in wealth that these families, ancient lines, all of them that came here, claimed the land and gave us your original titles, all of that belongs to who? Show me how that does not belong to my people. Show me how the original land titles in our recorder's office do not supersede the authority of anything you claim to have. If you're part of the United Nations as a U.S. citizen because they are, that's your choice. For everybody I've seen that has the bumper sticker that says, get us out of the UN, hey, guess what? If you can find 12 law-abiding Americans who are educated, 12 Indians, they know who they are. They know their authority. And if you can get a majority that are veterans, guess what? You can have a Mahto plate for your county. It will have our actual logo, our seal, evidence of which has already been sent to these governing powers. It tells them, hey, we get the fact you think and you know that all U.S. citizens are non-belligerent enemy combatant British territorial subjects and thereby subjects of the Vatican, but we are not. We have our own flag. It has the Sioux medicine wheel, which preceded all of your agencies. And it has a specific color sequence, starting with white. Why? Because we're part of Yahuwah's people. Why is the red there? Because we're covered by the blood of Yahusha, baptized by water immersion in his name. Why do we have the black? Because we must deal with the corporate admiralty law. That's where Caesar is. Why do we have the yellow? Because we are royalty. We have always been royalty within our own lands. Why do we have the symbols between this? Why are they odd? Why is it not a strict cross up and down? Because the Aleph is disguised in our flag. Why? Because it also represents the first version of Aleph, which looks like a cross laid on its side. But within it is also the common day spelling of the Aleph. Every other flag on the planet has symbols on it, whether or not you recognize it by its color, its shape, or anything else that's on it. Ours has a medicine wheel. Why? Because we do not believe in using a caduceus for our people or any of the pharmaceuticals that they inject us with. So within our villages, we exercise the right to use holistic remedies, to use frequency healing, other things. If we are housing veterans who are being financed by any public agencies, we follow their directions and instructions for whatever they have, because we are considered to be fiduciaries working in the capacity of those taking care of our public servants. We get it, no problem. When it comes to the inner village walls, if we have practitioners there that wish to practice holistic medicine and they do so in a legal and lawful manner, why? Because it's foreign trust property. All foreigners are forbidden from accessing any inner village wall without being escorted. Why? Because it's retained for the offspring. That innocence, that purity, that connection to all of the natural vibrations, the frequencies, what we consider to be real education, real medicine, Yahuwah's laws. That's where they learn that. That's why the orphanage straddles the inner wall. It's because it gives the kids access to both cultures. But it trains them to master Caesar's realm. They understand the fact that we are still under Roman law. It's called the Roman Catholic Church. This is specifically why they must learn Hebrew, because it's Yahuwah's original language. And that's specifically what is perverted by the word legal, which means admiralty, which means anything that is not God's law. Look at the original definition of legal. It was specifically the undoing of God's law, Yahuwah's law. This is why it is imperative that everybody understand one important principle. Every village is a church first. Why is it a church first? Because that's the only way you can claim ownership over your offspring. As long as they have ownership over your offspring and you allowed them to utilize their body as surety for any debts against that estate, guess what? Your offspring will be coerced in public school as a minor to sign away their rights. Get a driver's license. Go through driver's education. Why? Because the public servants who were also raised in the same system, all of our great educational staff who had wonderful intentions, who were there to basically go ahead and try to do the best that they could do. I'm not slamming any of them. What I'm saying is that they were the ones that assisted in coercing us into signing away our rights. Why? Because contract law is supreme law in the Republic of the United States and also internationally. Let me say that again. You have a right to engage in commerce. It is an international law for anybody to interfere with anybody's ability to engage in commerce. And as always, I will make the same offer. Any attorney, any bar association member, any prosecutor, any senator, any representative who wishes to debate me, or any of you foreigners who claim title and ownership to our lands, give me your best shot on live TV whenever you think that you have enough moxie to try it. I want you to defend your right to invade our original title to our lands and not have to pay us some fee, some remuneration for the use of it. Why is that? Because the mistake that the natives made when the pilgrims landed was not immediately adopting them into their tribe. They were guests. If you had landed at the shores owned by any Mahto tribe and our ideology, we would have immediately introduced you to the correct name of Yahuwah. We would have told you about his son Yahusha. We would have showed you our medicine wheel and explained the significance. We would have showed you our scriptures. Is somebody claiming that we did not exist back then? You better do a really rough, very thorough, very detailed sketch of exactly what went on these lands prior to the arrival of these Italian families and their explorers. What was here? Why the specific locations for all of their churches? Look what used to be underneath them. Let me give you a hint. If you have a water system underneath and you create the correct structure above that is stone impregnated with copper wiring, that within the correctly oriented chambers brings in the morning sun's rays, what do? They excite the crystals that are packed inside of and lead to the Queen's chamber. What is that? That's a Tesla coil. If you have this structure in a pyramid fashion on the right meridian, and it is covered with dolomite, and it has a gold cap, this will necessarily draw down the rays as soon as the crystals are excited. Why? Because the river underneath acts as the ground. The pyramid is a collector. Why do all the staffs and all the hieroglyphs have tuning forks? Why do they have that ankh in one hand and they always have the cone in the other? Because the cone purifies and rectifies the signals just like a crystal. What is that cone composed of? Not exactly sure, but I could almost guarantee you that it's super solid. Why? Because the denser the object, the more rectified the signal, the stronger it becomes. So ultimately, if you were standing on a slab and you stuck that staff in the slab and it began vibrating at the right frequency because you put copper between the forks and you plucked it, conceivably that slab will now levitate. If you were to utilize two different sources together and create a Caesar beam, if you gave it enough time and directed it, could you not lift that? All of my physicists, all of the men out there that understand these topics, are you picking up what I'm putting down? If you could do this, make them vibrate, you could literally melt rocks together. What do we see in all of these ancient structures? We see stones literally melted together. Have you ever been down to and inspected very carefully Homestead, Florida, where Red Coral Castle is, Edward Leedskalnin? This little 110-pound man created this entire structure out of nothing more than red coral. Whenever people were around, he seemed to know. He would stop working. He only worked in the evenings. Anybody that was able to catch him said they heard him singing to the rocks. What does that mean, to sing to the rocks? That means you're humming, right? How do you levitate an object that is incredibly more dense than water, which is 675 times more dense than air? So you know anything's going to go through that even faster. He had the secrets, apparently. He knew how to vibrate long pieces of metal in the correct fashion to make them cut through coral, dolomite, any of these hardened stones. Men, if you want to find a fun activity for you and the boys, go get yourselves a copper pipe, get yourselves a speaker, attach it to that, start vibrating that sucker and see how fast it goes through hard stone or rock. Start experimenting with this. Why? Because those who control everything you read, see, and hear will not tell you. They will not tell you to listen to the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. They will not tell you that you must understand exactly who's on the other side. It is an enemy, a principality that has done the most strategic thing possible, and that is to disguise their existence from the entire world. They have corrupted the times and the seasons. They have you saying the names of foreign Elohim like JC, God, Lord. They have you speaking a foreign language. We spoke American, Assiniboine, and Sioux. The second language we should have had was Hebrew. Hebrew appears on Easter Island. Why were the Moedim destroyed over there? Whatever they're called, the big statues. Because they had writings on them that were Hebrew. How did we get Hebrew writing all over the world? Why isn't it somewhere that it can be seen easily? Why do we have pyramids that have been hidden from all populations on all continents? Why have we not been told that the earth is hollow? Go read the scriptures where it says his sons became mighty men in the earth. Why were we told this idiot, ridiculous concept that we have been to outer space? When it clearly says in the scriptures that the windows of heaven were opened and water poured forth. It's all water out there, fools. There is a barrier we cannot get through. There is land south of Antarctica. And after the next ice wall, and the next ice wall, and the next ice wall. If you've never read Gulliver's Travels, where he describes in one of his books, ridiculing British aristocracy, the 2 moons of Mars. We didn't realize until the 60s, with telescopes powerful enough to see that there were actually 2 moons. And wouldn't you know it, he actually described the correct rotation of each one, which is opposite to the moon's other one. How does that happen? In a big bang. Have you ever heard the theory of velocity, constant velocity? You take a piece of string, you put a weight on it, and you swing it over your head. That means the centrifugal force will continue to make it spin in one direction when you let go. And the second you let go, it's in its own orbit. If presumably we had nothing that exploded, just give yourself a minute on that. Wouldn't we presume that according to this law, that everything would have to necessarily go out in a direction exactly opposite from the source? Thus, they would all be spinning at the same speed. They would be going the same direction. Why do Uranus and Venus rotate at opposite directions to all the other planets? Isn't that impossible? If that law of the universe is correct? If we do in fact have a round Earth, why can you stand on the shoreline opposite Chicago with a high-powered lens and see the skyscrapers? It's over 25 miles. Map of the Earth shouldn't be in sight. At least half of it should be obscured. If water seeks a level surface everywhere else and pours off of a globe, why are you trying to convince us that our world is round when the scriptures clearly tell us it's not? Have you ever studied the book of Enoch? Have you ever studied all of these other books that were kept from us? I'm not telling you that anything outside of the Torah should be considered Yahuwah's law, especially if you're reading the writings of a man. I don't care what he called himself. If he walked and he was not able to raise the dead, he did not resurrect after he died. He's not Yahusha. There are 7 key characteristics that Yahusha fulfilled that made him the actual son of Yahuwah. There were actually 200 and something, I believe, characteristics, but if you only took the top 7, just the top 7, and you took the odds against him being the actual chosen one, the odds against Yahusha being the chosen one were greater than 10 to the 300th power against him not being the chosen one. Let me clarify that. In other words, we have 10 to, I believe, 132 power molecules in the entire universe. And we have at least triple that against Yahusha not being the Messiah. And we have people betting their salvation on this. Men, pastors, you teachers of the law, you are responsible for what you teach your followers, just as I am. Now, again, I'll never claim to be a good man. I'll never claim to be a devout man. I am a subject, a servant of the Most High, and a bondservant at that. I've given the same affirmation and oath to my nation to defend the Constitution for the Republic. That's common law. It's not admiralty law. That means my people have to have a means and a method to be able to travel securely, to be able to trade. Just got off a call with LexisNexis this morning. He told me, yeah, you contacted us a year ago. We think you're in the wrong department. You need to contact her instead. So she's going to call me back. What's the purpose of that? I need a routing number. Why? Because our financial institution that interfaces with the U.S. Treasury has to have a conduit for that. Who is our financial institution for the tribe? It is Mahto Financial, subsidiary of Mahto Ministries. I have to be able to exchange all people's foreign currency, don't care what it is, as long as it's legal and lawful in the Republic or the democracy that controls commerce. If you can utilize it, then we can exchange it at that point. Why? Because even though the tribe and the ministry lives in the private, we must give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So we must have this conduit for Mahto Financial. How else do the villages function? Again, we must have a majority of veterans on the tribal council. Why? Because the veterans have an oath to protect the Constitution. And if they are truly fully enrolled American Indians of the Mahto tribe, they are the most educated Americans in any territory, period. They will stand before any bar association member, any foreigner, and they are capable of not only defending themselves, most likely, because they are American veterans, but they're fully capable of articulating to you and giving you a tongue lashing between the scriptures and the Constitution for the Republic as to why you do not have permission to even talk to them without permission. Why you do not have authority. Why you had better be thankful that they do not institute their inherent right as a common law jury to take all foreigners who have to abide by their corporate statutory laws and use them against them in our courts. Tell them, hey, guess what? There's this thing called a RICO statute. Says here that you were given legal and lawful notice on this date, yet you stopped one of my people. That means you just donated all of your assets. Unless you can prove how you were working within some jurisdictional authority we are aware of, that means your corporate entity just donated their assets under RICO. Why? Because you guys are racketeering and trafficking children and humans, not humans, men and women, under your foreign law when you have already been given legal and lawful notice that we are not of your people. We belong to Yahuwah. Our attorney, in fact, power of attorney over every one of our members is Chief Mahto. Here's where he can be reached. You can call him anytime you want. Because by doing so, you subject yourself to our jurisdiction. How? Because the chief's given legal and lawful notice of who he is to all of the owners of admiralty law. It's called a letters patent. I have the registered mail number. It specifically says I've invoked Canon Laws 2055 and 2056 for my tribe, not of, for. That means one of your foreign state, federal, whatever county, city agents decides that you have to speak to one of us. I don't care if you see one of my veterans walking around with a weapon. I trust them. They're not going to steal anybody's shit. They're not going to tell somebody that, hey, you know what, for my safety, you can't keep your weapon. Do you know what would have happened to you 300 years ago if you would have come up to an Indian and said that to him? You would have had a bad day. Since you have proven that when men act like men who are peaceful, and even though I understand the fact that these officers are not properly trained, I will not take a human life for something as trivial as a weapon. But I also have a duty as a veteran to ensure that my right to keep and bear arms, keep being the operative word, is enforced by my servants. And until they actually acknowledge that by returning my weapons and convicting the actual criminals who trafficked me and my offspring, I have a duty to ensure it's done by us. How? Because it's in the preamble to the Declaration. Very clearly. Some of us do not have a choice whether we want to preach the word. We do not have a choice whether we want to protect babies. All world government authorities, be very clear on that one very important thing. The chief would rather be traveling around fishing, doing Yahuwah's work. But I have an obligation to protect the babies. That means we protect them from women who kill them. Why is that? Because they belong to the dad in the event of a divorce. And even though it may piss people off, the chief has to preach Yahuwah's word. And what does that say? It's not a law within the Mahto tribe or Mahto ministries, but all men are encouraged. Do not date divorcees. Why? First, because Yahuwah said so, not the chief. It's in his word. Take it up with him if you have a problem with that. But also because, in my opinion, since women file in 90% of all cases if they have a college degree and 70% if they do not, because they got a license, instead of having the common law Mahto marriage contract, which would have prevented that, guess what? Your offspring now belong to that corporate entity. They're going to create a debt under their Title 4D Section 666, hint, hint, program. That's how they buy and sell souls, Revelation. That debt is going to be put on the back of that father, that dad, that man of Yahuwah, if he doesn't know any better, because my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, right? I keep repeating certain things because I'm hoping people will pick up on them. Doesn't happen once they become a Mahto tribal member, people. This is about offspring. In the villages, it is about increasing the GDP, reducing the public debt, and providing services, long-term care and hospice and otherwise, whatever increases the quality of life from my veterans, first responders, and law enforcement officers who are injured in the line of duty. And yes, that includes U.S. citizen law enforcement officers, and it also includes all Mahto law enforcement officers once those agencies are established. We are here to serve Caesar's servants, Caesar's property. But make no mistake about it, we belong to Yahuwah alone. Any U.S. citizen servant from any agency that wishes to challenge that, you're willing to put your property up. You're willing to put, as a bar association member, you're willing to put your property and your assets up, then file charges against me. I don't care which one of you does it. I don't care how long it takes. It's already been clearly articulated. There is a vocal record of it. What my intent is. My sole intent is to protect the offspring, to reach people with ears to hear and eyes to see, to also bring heaven to earth, to go out and preach the word of Yahusha, his son Yahusha. I do not want to tangle with foreign entities. I'm not here to try to be famous. I am here out of strict duty to men, to families, to preserve Yahuwah's word and to encourage good families. If one really studies how each village is structured, I don't care what land you own. The second you put it into the tribe, that village, it is in a land trust exclusively for your benefit and use. That means that if you allowed your village to utilize it to create or generate revenue, you're entitled to 90% of whatever that land and all the assets on it make. You want to build a film studio? Put it there. You'll get everything paid to you back in wampum, or it'll be returned once I get this routing number established in the financial arm. It'll be paid to you in whatever you want, US dollars, Bitcoin, whatever is legal. That's our public side. That's what our partners in 4FCF4U, that's what they do. They manage that for us. But the intent is to get everybody a platform where you can share anything that's non-pornographic, and whatever you share, however many followers, whatever ad revenue, whatever anything that's created from that, you keep 90%. Why? Because it's private. Our website's private. Our wampum's private. We manage those minor estates to generate the revenue for the public agencies or entities that we still allow to provide us services. What do I mean by that? The services are our national defense. All of the other things that our President Trump takes care of for us. What do we not have? We reserve the right to try all foreigners in our criminal jurisdictions. What do you mean? What I mean is that by joining the Mahto tribe, by casting a vote in our upcoming elections, if one chooses to become an actual Mahto tribal member, we have amendments that we adopt. One of those amendments specifically is that admiralty law is abolished in our territory without license. Why? Because it's our land. Duh. We're being licensed by foreign entities to travel on our own land. Why? Because we don't have a flag. Because we don't have our own laws established. This is the Republic. Provided we injure no other parties, we have a right to live peacefully and lawfully however we choose. The only question mark in this entire affair is, do we have the right to try foreigners in our criminal courts? That's why I asked. That's why I'm giving these guys notice. That's why I was given notice to Trump, to Biden. Hey, this is who we are. We live according to the common law. If there's an assembly that joins, that means that assembly has adopted the amendment. What is the amendment? It means we have the right to try all foreigners in our criminal courts. And that if there are any criminal charges against any one of our Indians, we will handle it. And because the chief has exclusive right to dictate where his members will or will not be tried, including our offspring, he does not consent to our members, our foreign soldiers, any of our veterans being tried in foreign courts. I don't care what it is. Pick one. Our courts carry inherent authority over all of our members and anybody operating within our territories. Prove me wrong using the law. Prove me wrong using the UN's Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. We do not have to subject ourselves to being kidnapped, to having our property stolen, to having ourselves assumed to be criminals or traitors to the Republic. We're not enemies to any Republic, and anybody that accuses us of such is literally an enemy to the Republic. Why? Because they're foreign. I can't say that enough. If you join the Mahto tribe, you're part of an Indian nation. You legit can walk around and tell people you're an Indian. You're a Native American. What tribe? The Assiniboine and Sioux. What band? Oh, this band, just the Mahto band. Oh, well, that's not one of the traditional bands. You're the only one that cares, Jack. You're a U.S. citizen. Who gives two shits what your opinion is? Stop pushing on the Q-tip when you feel resistance. You're not impressing me. I don't care what your traditions, your ceremonies, your cultural whatever are. That's not ours. We are the ones who have mastered all of our foreign knowledge, all of that natural knowledge, that holistic healing that our ancestors had. You guys are all at the mercy of the Indian Health Service. Good luck. We actually use stuff that heals, not prolongs sickness. We do not use drugs unless they have a specific purpose. What's up, brother?
Oh, we just got about 3 minutes to the top of the hour. I know you're
awesome. Thank you.
You're doing amazing. And I just
I got a conference call coming up here at 11. So
yep.
I'm going to have to head out soon. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you had this recording so that all of our intentions and my intentions anyway are laid out clearly. So again, I assume at some point I'll have some jackass accuse me of something. And again, I'm ready for that because I said I would when I became a veteran or when I became, a member of the U.S. Army, just like you did. So what I do not want is I don't want low IQ individuals out there starting to claim that we are some anti-government bullshit, whatever. No, we are educated Americans, period. That's who we are. And we are educated enough to understand the fact that anybody who has been purposely trained to violate our rights by who? By foreigners who've taken an oath to a foreign entity. Yep. I think anybody with an average IQ could see that that could be a problem. And if that happens, what would we expect to see? We expect to see Americans stopped randomly. Why? Because they're generating revenue in their bullshit admiralty courts. Wake up, America. Again, I'm willing to debate, talk to, discuss this with anybody right now. Albert's my press agent. Got to contact him if you want to schedule time with me. He takes care of all the appointments. He's graciously agreed to help, right, Albert? Or did I dream that?
No, you're absolutely right.
Awesome. Okay, so contact him if you want, to discuss when and where I'll be available. But I will be taking a nationwide tour very soon to get out here after I mail all this stuff and start meeting people and start talking about actions that we want to have, not only in each one of our villages and each one of our territories, but for the National Tribal Council. National Council can't come unless the chiefs have been elected by the territories. All the territorial chiefs or leaders are basically elected by each one of the villages. It was designed to be very easy to put together. That's why the juries are 12 men who operate by asking questions. They have authority to subpoena. They have authority to do whatever. Last piece of the puzzle is within the notice of joining the tribe. I give all these admiralty jurisdictions notice that all existing court cases involving one of my tribal members are now removed to the jurisdiction of that village. And that means we will be in there reviewing them. First, it's for the grand juries to see how many treasonous Americans we have. And then secondly, it would be, for determining assets or liabilities or whatever, utilizing common law and exclusive equity jurisdiction. So if I don't hear back from these entities telling us this reason and this reason or why you can't have these courts, then I'll have to assume that they agree. That's how commerce works. That's how the common law works. And again, I'm not usurping the president's authority. I am asking if we, the people, do not have authority to simply amend by joining a tribe the Constitution as follows, that we now retain all right to all criminal, commercial jurisdictions within our territories. That means that unless you're licensed through that village or through that territory, why are you here? Those are the questions we're going to ask. If you're claiming that you own this island, we're an indigenous tribe. We have a recorder's office. We don't have a record of that. Can you please provide evidence of any de jure authority that supersedes ours? Well, it's this over here. Yeah, it's for U.S. citizens. We're not part of the Vatican. We're part of Yahuwah's tribes, indigenous original people groups. So you tell me, where does your authority come from that supersedes ours? Thank goodness that the chief is a law-abiding man who understands the wisdom and being able to utilize the wisdom of those who came after us, which again is what the tribe should have done initially. Tecumseh was wrong when he said, push them off of our lands. No. You adopt their traditions, the ones that serve us. You adopt their ways of life that keep everything peaceful and secure in line with Yahuwah's law. If they were thinking, they would have created an outer Mahto fence and a 1 mile area off the shores surrounding our nation and put all businesses there, just like the Mahto village model, until they could devise a good reason to go ahead and get in the interiors. But again, we digress. And it looks like we are also out of time, friends. So I will go ahead and close this meeting today, Tribal Council. Again, thank you for everybody that attended. Thank you for anybody that shares this message. Again, I am available for interviews, but you have to contact my boy Albert. And I'm also available again to talk to any other worldwide leaders, anybody else that have questions. Again, I'm a humble man of God, man of Yahuwah, and a servant of my people, nothing more than that. And I'm certainly not against any of my native people. I'm praying that they actually wake up and understand this material enough to understand the importance of either doing your own thing or, adopting the Mahto model. I don't really care, as long as you're no longer slaves to your foreign oppressors. It's very simple. So I will say this in the name of Yahuwah and his son Yahusha, in which it is offered. And thank you all again for attending. Shalom.
Hey, Chief.
Yeah.
You can stop